Holt. Ms. Holt has served as Hillsborough County Public Defender since 1993. She heads a criminal defense firm of over 120 full-time attorneys and directs the representation of over 50,000 cases annually. Her office is committed to the efficient and effective legal representation of her clients, while also treating those clients, her employees, and the entire community with dignity and respect. And perhaps there can be no greater testament to that commitment than what we heard from several of her current and former employees and staff members today in terms of their expertise and the passion that they share in really embodying that commitment. In addition to those attorneys, Ms. Holt herself lives that mission on a daily basis. We see her actively involved in our community on a regular basis, and certainly she's been a really important collaborator with Crossroads, whether that was in the discussion of direct file cases and their evolution over recent years, or most recently in the collaboration as Crossroads has evolved to be doing more work in the delinquency division. So we're very grateful for her continued partnership and lucky to have her with us today. So, Ms. Holt.
Wow, as I looked around the room, I feel like I'm going to be talking to folks that have been doing the work that I've loved for the last 27 years. I see a lot of people, Paul and Janine, and just it's amazing to see the folks here. But I also want to thank Rosemary for, number one, her vision that she had years ago, and then number two, for all of you that have taken on this particular role that you have within the court system, because frankly, without you, the system would not have improved over the last probably 10, 15 years the way it has. So for me, my goal today was to try and give you some ideas of what's going on in the public defender's office, what's going on in the juvenile justice system, what kind of trends are we seeing in terms of perhaps statewide as well as local. And so my purpose today is to just try to catch you up on everything that I've thought was important to do over the last few years. A lot of these things in collaboration with other people. One of them is we actually did a study in the Juvenile Detention Center in 2018. And what we did was we selected someone to come out from the community to go in and talk to our clients, because you talk to our clients, we talk to our clients, law enforcement talks to our clients, but how are they going to trust those individuals? So we brought somebody in from the community, someone that frankly demographically mirrored our clients and had actually been arrested in the past and had gone through the system and is now a very successful individual. And to no surprise, what came out of that study is that these youth realize that they have found themselves in the system because they've made bad choices. And they look at their first bad choices really being who they associate themselves with, who their friends are, and who they hang around with. But they also identified the lack of job opportunities that they feel that they have based on their demographics. And they also identified the fact that they don't think that they have as much opportunity for after-school activities that perhaps people that live in South Tampa do. And so one of the things that we decided to do as a result of that was we needed to have some serious discussions about opening up those opportunities. And you're going to hear from our state attorney shortly after I finish speaking, and you're going to see kind of the mirror things that we think we need to do, and that is we need to find ways to collaborate together and work within the system, but also outside of the system. Both of us are members of the foundation board of the Boys and Girls Club. And the reason that we've done that is because we understand that we, within the criminal justice system, can really only do so much. You then need to go outside of the system, and you need to support and work with some type of entities that will take on children that are at risk, children that are having problems at home, children that need mentors, children that need some after-school help. And the Boys and Girls Club are tremendous in that. And so in trying to work with them, you know, they have a 97% success rate if, in fact, you can catch a child and make them a part of the Boys and Girls Club family. The other thing we did is we decided that we wanted to be a part of something called Safe and Sound Hillsborough. It's a collaborative that exists. It's a public-private partnership. It's identified where are our children at highest risk by zip code. And let's go into those communities and let's try to empower the community. The number one problem that we discovered within the communities that we identified was there is a lack of trust between law enforcement, our youth, and even the individuals that are the parents or the guardians of our clients. And so what we needed to start doing was building upon the problems that we actually saw in these communities. One of them is the lack of trust. And this collaborative includes law enforcement, it includes the state attorney's office, the county, the city, it includes our court administrator, it includes our chief judge, lots of people. But what it's also done is start to build relationships in these communities with our faith-based partners that we can now start to count on. And why was that important? Because I'm pretty sure that most of you understand that one of the number one problems that are facing a lot of our clients is their mental well-being. Rather than call it their mental disorder, rather than call it their mental illness, what we want to call it is how do we get people healthy mentally as well as physically. And so identifying on mental health well-being became our challenge, and about 2 years ago, we decided to confront pretty much the situation that exists in many communities, and that is to talk about mental health is taboo. Instead, what we would rather do is pray that things go better. And so we had an actual public-private, again, collaboration with faith-based individuals that finally acknowledged that, guess what, mental health is for real, it's here to stay. And it's affecting our communities tremendously, and you can't make people feel like they have some type of scarlet letter on them, and you can't just ignore it and you can't just pray it away. And so what we've done is we've forged relationships through that. I want to tell you about there's going to be a Baker Act listening tour that is going to be held at US 301 Wholesome Ministries, and I'm fairly confident the date is October 30th. But I'll get the date to Rosemary for you. It's important because one of the things that I've done over the last 2 months is go to the listening tours that have been held at our high schools that Karen Perez, our school board member, decided to hold. Every single community that we go to, whether it's Wharton, whether it's Hillsborough, whether it's Plant High School, no matter where we go, the problems have all been the same. Our children are under more stress, more anxiety, suffering more depression than ever before. More importantly, parents are identifying that we are a part of how this has happened because of the stress and because of the pressure that kids feel to make great grades, be involved in sports, go to these great schools, and all these goals that are set and all the way along the path, not ever realizing that what we were doing to kids was when they sit there and they graduate, after being in school for 12 hard years and thinking they're doing great because they've got a 4.2, the person who walked this year was above a 10.0. I don't even have any idea how you get there. But imagine that you're sitting there and you're one of 300 or 400 or 500 kids, and to hear the parents, especially at Plant High School, talk about how can we take away some of this stress and some of this pressure. We have dual enrollment, we have AP, and every single one of them is looking to the school system and to this new influx of money and influx of attention that they think is going to exist in the school system because of what happened down in Parkland. And what that tells me is that mental health is for real, and that even parents are starting to see that a part of the deterioration that can happen to a child is happening because of the goals and the expectations that they think that we perhaps as a community have upon them, and that they don't know how to say no to AP classes. They don't know how to say no to dual enrollment. And I've got 2 kids that actually did AP classes and did the dual enrollment, and of course, like every Monday morning quarterback, they asked me, why did we do this? And so I said, remember, this was your choice? And they said, no, not really. Because of their grades, they felt that the pressure was happening within the schools. And so I think as parents, we need to be aware of that and consciously aware of that. I've had the pleasure of having a 3-year, what I call one of the best 3 years of my 27 years, and that I've seen a lot of things come to fruition that I've been working on for a long time. Not because I'm the brightest public defender in the state, but because I surrounded myself with tremendous lawyers that saw boots on the ground problems that we had within the juvenile justice system. And they saw that the needs that we had included, we needed some specialty courts, and we have over the last 3 years been able to kick off an adult mental health court, a juvenile mental health court, courts that actually take the first interest that court has is the child or the adult. It is not the criminal case that's pending. It is the person. How can we make this person better? How can we make this person more whole? How can we make this person more successful in the future? And frankly, it would be remiss if I didn't applaud the fact that our state attorney considers the community and the people in our community as a priority when he's balancing his public safety responsibilities that he has, which are our priority. He also knows that long term, if you have criminal convictions on your record as a result of being in the criminal justice system because of mental health problems, you really have done a disservice to not only that particular individual, but to our community. And so it's been tremendous to see the collaboration that we've been able to have, frankly, not only with his office, but with law enforcement, recognizing that we cannot incarcerate away and solve our problems through the prison system or through a detention system. My goals for 2020, as it relates to the Juvenile Detention Center, I have not been as good about this as I should have been. I didn't realize how bad the conditions in the detention center are. And so I can guarantee that that's going to be my number one goal with the new Department of Juvenile Justice Secretary, and that's to address that. And it's not just the physical conditions of the detention center, but I believe that something that Rosemary did as it related to our juvenile direct file clients that were being held in solitary confinement in the jail, I believe that it is incumbent upon all of us to ensure that what we have in the detention center is a mutual relationship of trying to mentor, coach, develop, and respect the people that are in that system, whether you're charged with a criminal offense or not. It is not supposed to be a military boot camp. It is not supposed to be do this, do that. If you don't know anything else as a parent, that never works. And so it's not going to be any different in a detention center. And by speaking here today, it's kind of selfish on my part, because I bet you any money I'll have Rosemary calling me here soon and saying, what can I do to help? And so, it's going to be a good thing for us. And so I say publicly to my attorneys, I'm very sorry that I did not understand just how poor things were there. I had a friend of mine approach me Friday. Southern Poverty Law Center has filed a lawsuit as it relates to the use of solitary confinement within the detention center. I didn't know that they were using solitary confinement for approximately 9 hours a day to try and conform behavior. So when we talk about sharing information, that's the kind of information that we all need to share. You with us with you, and we need to fix this problem. And the best part about it is the Department of Juvenile Justice Secretary has a condo in Tampa, Florida, that she visits. And so, we have an opportunity here. And I think we should really work hard at that. One of the things that we're trying to do is in our juvenile mental health court is we really are trying to slow down the system, and we're trying to engage all the parties, including the school system, to really have a holistic approach to our children. And I can tell you that I see the benefit of that. But the bigger benefit is that the chief judge has found a way to hold providers accountable. And all of you have had to deal with, providers that you wish would go a little extra further, a little extra step on behalf of our clients. This judge is doing that. We're slowing down the system so that we're discussing people's IQ, we're discussing people's medical issues, we're discussing impediments that people may have, that our youth may have, as well as their parents, to being successful in this realm that we're operating under. And remember, it's a mental health realm that we're under. So that's, to me, one of the best things. The expansion of our juvenile arrest avoidance program, again, applauding law enforcement, applauding our chief judge, our state attorney, that we have been able to expand that. That's a good thing. Anytime you can keep a child out of a criminal justice system in any way and not affect their liberty, but at the same time educating them and affording them services, again, that's to make a better person for the future. So for us, that's a tremendous thing. The listening tours that we're going to do for all of this community, I think if you find a passion in that, I think you will benefit tremendously, because you'll see what some of the challenges of our parents are that exist. One of the things that we're still working on, and again, I mean this again in a very positive way. I have applauded publicly both Rosemary and Mr. Warren, our state attorney, the work that we've done in the area of juvenile direct files. Michelle has done tremendous work in that area on behalf of our office. Before that, it was Lily McCarty, that other people here know. And that work has helped us in going from being the #1 juvenile direct file county. That's not us anymore, and that's something to be proud of. Do we still have work to do? The answer is yes. But I don't put that challenge on Mr. Warren or on law enforcement. I put that challenge on all of us, because whenever a firearm is involved in a case, you have to understand that that's a public safety issue and that's a community issue. One of the main things that came out of my juvenile detention center study that was a challenge for me was that every single child we talked to knew where to get a firearm and could access a firearm within minutes, if not hours. That's better than what I can do, because I have a firearm, I think, in a safe that I don't know the combination to. But it gives you an idea. And when I asked the question, and when they were asked the question, why, you don't live where I live and you don't hear shots being fired like I do on a regular basis. That's something that we need to work on in this community. And if you're thinking, that's made up, I've been doing depositions in a high-profile homicide case recently. Almost everybody that I depose from a particular area of town tells me that they don't call 911 anymore because they're just kind of used to it. So unless it's close by, I don't call. So it's a reality that we have to live with and accept and understand and work towards. But firearms is an issue that we need to deal with, because our juvenile direct file numbers are not going to be able to be affected much more if we don't work in that area. The elephant in the room, do I believe that there is still a minority overrepresentation in our system? And I will tell you that we now have a group that we're a part of that's called the Hillsborough Girls Coordinating Council. And it's another, I sit on a lot of boards and a lot of councils, and I literally really go to the meetings myself because I want to stay in touch with what the numbers really look like and what are the problems. Last year, we had over 700 girls that were arrested here in Hillsborough County. What's the #1 charge? Assault and battery. The majority of the cases, and Mr. Warren and I think, look at the same numbers probably all the time. It's amazing how many misdemeanor offenses are occurring in the juvenile system. If we could solve at least that part of our life, misdemeanor offenses, fights, petty thefts, things of that sort, we would really tremendously reduce the impact on the juvenile justice system, which doesn't just help my workload or my caseload. What that does is afford you an opportunity to have a one-on-one type of interaction with your client in front of a judge, and it would allow for much more better case management. Every time you hear someone talk about our specialty dockets and they say we staff first and then we have court, the benefit to that is unbelievable, because you have everybody that's interested in that child together in a room coming up with a plan for that child, as opposed to being in an open courtroom where everybody has their 2-minute spiel that they're going to give, and then a judge is going to be trying to figure out what to do with that particular case. So case managing would be a tremendous thing. And if we could get to where our juvenile justice system focused on felony offenses and not the misdemeanor offenses, that would afford us a tremendous opportunity. Am I being critical of the system? And the answer is no. What I'm suggesting is, how do we find a way to try and work on impulse behavior, and how do we find a way to treat people with respect so you don't steal their property? And those are important things that we need to do. Why is that important here in Hillsborough County? Because the curriculum in the school board has now made a decision that as early as elementary school, you need to start teaching children about conflict resolution, anger management, and impulse behavior issues. You need to start focusing on that. That's only going to be as good as what we can do in the community and in our homes. So to me, that's very important for us to know about. And when we look at the numbers that have come out, the African American numbers in relation to the African American population of our county is too high. And so we need to really address it, and we need to be honest about it. How can we do that? By engaging with our children more directly and talking to them about what are their problems and what are their needs, and why are they finding themselves in the positions that they're finding themselves in. I've sit on a couple of other boards that I think are important as it relates to female issues, and that's because that's one of the areas where we've seen a trend of higher numbers, and that's why we focus a little bit in that. I'm involved with the PACE Center for Girls. Why is that important? Because it has a holistic approach towards girls. It teaches them about self-esteem, about self-confidence, about what's a good relationship and what's a bad relationship. And how do you ensure that you, in spite of wherever you're coming from, how do you assure that you're treated in the way that you want to be long term? How do you convince them that once they're in this juvenile justice system, they can still be successful? That's by, frankly, talking with people who have walked that path, have been in trouble before, and have now become successful. And places like the Boys and Girls Club do that. Places like PACE does that. Safe and Sound is going to do that. And I think all of those things are extraordinarily important. The last thing that I will tell you is that another challenge that we're going to take on, and have no idea how we're going to do this at this point, so I can't tell you more than what I'm saying. But I will be approaching Mr. Warren's office because last year 50% of our caseload was what's called a reappointed case. That means a child was put on probation or put onto some type of release, and they weren't able to maintain whatever the requirements were of their sentence. And so we've got to find a way to make people more successful. One thought is mentorships. We've tried to develop mentorships. It is really very hard to get people to want to mentor a child for anywhere from 6 months to a year if they have difficult situations or if they have difficult charges. So that's going to be another one of our 2020 challenges. But if we can address the misdemeanor offenses, if we can address these VOP type of cases, and if we can give children an opportunity for either jobs, after school activities, or something of that sort, to me, I think that will be having a tremendous impact on the children that live in this community. How can we all work better together? I think we may find that out soon. There's been a recommendation and a request that our office consider handling crossover children in both the dependency and the delinquency area. It's about 100 kids right now. Michelle just can't wait for that opportunity. Because see, Roxana's going to go, she's going on maternity leave, so she's hoping. But it's a request that's been made of our office, and we have put in a legislative budget request to try and get the funding. I've talked to the Department of Juvenile Justice Secretary. I'm going to meet with the DCF Secretary. And it will be an expansion of the work that we do, but I think that what it will do is afford a much more cohesive type of representation of a child. Rosemary and I have both seen a report that has recently been promulgated as a way to handle not only the crossover children, but also how to handle what are called the lockout kids or the more difficult children. I can tell you right now there's a tremendous pushback on this idea that we should treat children in a way that if their behavior is inappropriate, that we would lock them up. I can tell you that our office was not a part of that group that came up with that recommendation, but I will tell you, and I'm glad to say this to Rosemary today, the group has heard everybody loud and clear, and they realize that is not a good recommendation and that we need to do something different. The problem is we have no therapeutic homes here in Hillsborough County. And so for me to take on this crossover work, as well as perhaps this additional work, is going to require my having to locate money to bring back some formats of homes that can actually take on this responsibility. I say that cautiously because usually it's not just the money being available, but it's also then finding the right people that you can trust to also run the homes. I do want to acknowledge today that while the detention center conditions are not what we would like them to be for our children, I do believe that our sheriff has done a tremendous job of addressing situations that are brought to his attention. We now have a veterans treatment court pod. We have a mental health court pod. So people that are actually in jail have their own pods that kind of keep them on the right track and keep them in the right silo so that there's continuity in what we're trying to do in the court system and what we're trying to do in the jail. So although they're being detained, their needs are actually being addressed. That's unique for Hillsborough County. It's really a good thing to see it happening. And it's because we have someone who really believes in trying to make a difference in people's lives. The sheriff is also extraordinarily involved in the Boys and Girls Club and is probably one of the main individuals that raises money for them. And so the hearts are all in the right place, and now it's a matter of really addressing this last level of problems that we have to do. I always tell people I love being on the other side of Mr. Warren in the courtroom, but I do like being on the same side when it comes to our community issues. His head has gotten a little bit big the last couple of times I've said that. But you know what? I'm the type of person that thinks that, we cannot do the things we do without collaboration. Hillsborough County is well known for that. I have colleagues that tell me, I've never had a cup of coffee with my state attorney, much less lunch. I've never talked to my sheriff about conditions in the jail. I'll just send him a letter and tell him what he's doing wrong or she's doing wrong. So for me, I prefer this other way of doing business. I want to applaud y'all again for all the work that you do, and I'll give a shout out to my lawyers and my former lawyers that continue to have a good heart and continue to do good things for the community. And I think Betsy and I have been doing something together at least 40 years, Betsy. So we've been together for a long time, but it's nice to see as many people care. And I'm available for any questions, but I'm going to run back. I've got Larry Posner teaching cross-examination today at my office. So whatever Mr. Warren says, okay, just remember the other side of it, right? Okay. All right. You have a question for me at all, sir? Any questions for me at all? If not, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.